Thank you so much, Silke, for that introduction, and thank you everyone for being here this evening. You've got it hot up in here, so excuse the glow as I go through, but so great to see you all. All right, so to begin at the beginning of my interests, in ethnicity and health, we have to go back a few decades and the obligatory childhood picture to life growing up with parents who were migrants from Barbados. They worked incredibly hard, but we were not well off materially, but we had a really good family life. There was always time for a game of cricket. I've got 4 siblings. We had 6 cousins up the road, so we had enough for a decent game and 5-a-side football besides. And it was Mum's vinyl collection which provided the reggae, soca and jazz soundtrack. However, if your nose was in a book, you were left alone because education was a top priority. But it was Caribbean food that was really at the centre of family life. However, I was acutely aware of the hostility towards migrants in this country, and I listened to hot debates about politics among the adults around me. Margaret Thatcher got a daily dressing down. Thatcher, Thatcher, Thatcher was always on their lips. And I was aware of the different ways in which newspapers and other media depicted the uprising of black people in response to systemic prejudice. So what did this backdrop mean in terms of my day-to-day experience? Well, I had a strong sense of self at home. However, this was not reflected in my school life or in the curriculum, and there was limited protection from the pervading hostility anywhere other than at home. So I'll articulate what this meant for me using the words of other Black Britons that strongly resonate with my experience. And so, for example, David Olugosu has spoken about his fears of being sent back and not really sure about being sent back where. And importantly, he kept those fears to himself. And Andy Oliver talks of the daily running the gauntlet, going to school was an act of bravery. But what about health within this context? Well, it was my realisation that as my parents and other family and their friends reached their early 40s and sometimes their late 30s, they started to experience chronic illnesses, especially hypertension and type 2 diabetes. And this would be common topics of conversation. She's got pressure, meaning hypertension. He's got sugar, meaning diabetes. And of course, my understanding of social determinants of health came much later. But I was struck over time by all of these relatives being on medication, but no one really talking about how the strain and the stress of daily life might be a contributory factor. So my dad always had at least 2 jobs. My mum was an NHS nurse and worked shifts and dealt with discrimination on a daily basis. And I knew then that I wanted to have a future where I could bring my growing interest in food and nutrition and ethnicity and health together. So in due course, I went off to university. I was the only one in my family to do so. And despite parental encouragement, the barriers were really too great for my other siblings and my older brothers in particular. Well, I went off to King's College to study nutrition, but I found that ethnicity and health really wasn't a feature in these taught courses that I took. However, as a new graduate, I had a couple of junior research roles, and the first was at the Institute of Psychiatry, during which I had a really positive experience interviewing for a project aimed at improving the cultural relevance of a depression screening tool for Caribbean elders. And incidentally, it was my first experience of having an insider position. So someone might say, oh yes, I'll talk to you. I probably play dominoes with your dad. However, I wanted to put my nutrition training into use, and so this was just a stopgap. The other post was working on a diet and health epidemiological cohort study where they wanted to explore how to include black ethnic groups into the cohort due to these high rates of hypertension and stroke that I had noticed as a child, but was clearly now in the evidence base. However, several months of hard work came to nothing. It was deemed too difficult to include these groups and to assess their diets. And so that was that. By now I knew that in order to progress my career, I needed to and wanted to do a PhD. And although I still harboured the desire to work in the area of ethnicity and health, nothing was really forthcoming in that area. However, I did win a scholarship to the University of Bristol, and which at least was in a nutrition topic, so I was still excited to go. So this journey I wanted to be on had not quite started, but I'll briefly describe what this time did do for me. So I achieved my PhD and all the transferable skills that go with that. I was able to publish for my thesis, and that gained the media attention. And had a postdoc post where I could do further analysis and more publications. And quite soon after my viva, I submitted my first PI grant application, and that was successful. So as far as I was concerned, I was riding high. But although some areas of the department did include minoritised ethnic groups, there was still the attitude that in primary epidemiological research, including diverse ethnic groups was too difficult. And I was advised that maybe I'd be happier teaching in a polytechnic. The news that we were post-1992 by about a decade presumably hadn't filtered through. More positively, I was developing my networks with people with the same interests. I particularly want to mention David Blaine and Kennedy Cruikshank. I was already an admirer of their work in social epidemiology and ethnicity and health, respectively. But more than that, they've been among the most encouraging and constructive mentors throughout my whole career, for the last 20 years. And their message was very much, we need you and people like you. But beyond representation, they had a genuine appreciation for the range of skills that I could bring. So at this stage, I've got my PhD in my pocket. And this time I was determined I was going to work in the field that I wanted to work in, really wanted to work in. And it so happened that this post came up at exactly the right time at the Medical Research Council Social and Public Health Sciences Unit, which is in Glasgow. So the story here actually is the story of the next 10 years of my career. 11 years actually, sorry. So this very much felt like the stars were really aligning now. This is really where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. I joined as a postdoc, had a postdoc fellowship, and later was tenured as a researcher and senior researcher. So I had a permanent job relatively early on, and that wasn't the experience of many of my friends. And the idea was that I would join the new lead of the Ethnicity and Health programme, who is Saromini Harding, and we were going to expand the ethnicity and expand the programme. And we had 5-yearly core funding, which we were given freedom within in that last few years of that current budget at the time, to identify a research area in ethnicity and health and address a gap in the evidence. So the unit is in Glasgow, as I mentioned, but we wanted to access the super diversity of London. And so we were given the go-ahead to scope our ideas. We set up a tiny office in London. We shared one computer. and started what we called the DASH study. So initially it was just us in that cramped little room, but then we started to expand the team a little with some more expertise. So Harula Falakti joined us, and sadly she is sorely missed. And then here's Kennedy Cruikshank again, and it turns out he's a long-time colleague of Sir Romney Harding's. I had not previously met Sir Romney before the interview that I had with them, but essentially we knew and had worked with several of the same people. And I felt it was important that we were, this little team, all first and second generation migrants. So the DASH study started in 2002, 2003. I do not know where the last 20 years have gone, but participants were aged 11 to 13. And then we did a follow-up 3 years after that, and then a feasibility follow-up when they were adults at age 21. So the context actually was more political commitment actually to tackling health inequalities. There was explicit recognition of ethnic inequalities, and this was stated as a priority for New Labour. So we're in the middle of the New Labour era. And this was prompted by reports from Atkinson on inequalities in health, and the Macpherson report, of course, prompted by the murder of Stephen Lawrence, which highlighted institutional racism. However, though the talk was good, the ethnic inequalities widened, and health inequalities widened, and poverty and inequalities in general worsened during that period. However, in terms of our research approach, we took a life course perspective. That ethnic health differences were not fully explained by risk factors in later life, raising the question of when in the life course do these differences emerge. At this time, just to say a little word about terminology, so at this time we did use the term ethnic minorities, and these days I prefer minoritised ethnic groups, and so you'll see both of those terms in this presentation today. But in both cases we were inferring not just numerical minority, but also disadvantaged power relations. So up until that point there had been very little prior exploration of how health and social conditions in adolescence shape ethnic differences in health in later life. And that's the gap in the evidence that we wanted to address. From a personal point of view, I felt highly valued. I was trusted with a lot of responsibility and was given leadership opportunities for aspects of the study. And so to kind of touch base with my theme, I certainly felt less marginalised. Here I was in the mainstream. I felt I'm in academia, but I'm doing what I really want to do. So this is the DASH study. There's me, happy in my work, so young, so energetic. So what they did was questionnaires and physical measures, and we linked that with neighbourhood and school level data. So our main outcomes were cardiovascular, respiratory health and psychological well-being. So just to kind of touch on the challenges, the main challenge really was getting the thing off the ground. It took several months to recruit the schools, so we had 51 schools take part in 10 socially and ethnically diverse London boroughs. So we needed various strategies to engage with the schools and engage with the parents. There was suspicion about the motives of this medical research council. Who are these people? What do you want with our children? There was concern about data protection, understandably, and people were concerned that we would take DNA from their children and their kids would end up on a database and that would be used to nefarious ends. So there was lots of discussion and engagement with schools and families. And actually it was the work of prominent Black and Asian civic leaders, teachers and parent governors promoting participation in the study on our behalf voluntarily that was one of the keys to success, so that community engagement. And it was also the key to retaining a large percentage of the original cohort in the second wave. Oh, that should have gone. Oh. So just to give a snapshot of physical health findings, we found striking ethnic group differences in cardiovascular health risk. So, for example, although minorities at age 12 had lower blood pressure, by the age of 16, there were greater increases in blood pressure among the minority ethnic groups, especially the African boys. They had the highest blood pressure. And it was clear then that this was a point where we really should intervene to prevent those patterns that we see in adult life. We also showed significant ethnic differences in overweight and obesity, with high levels of living with overweight and obesity among Black African origin girls. So that's now well documented, but that was new evidence really at the time. And we were the first to report on parental and adolescent behavioural predictors of these outcomes, and some of them are listed here. In terms of other behaviours like smoking and alcohol consumption, this was lower among the minority ethnic groups compared to whites, but it increased in all groups, so all ethnic groups, all cultural groups across adolescence, with the gaps narrowing between ethnic groups across adolescence. And overall, we felt this showed a continuation of the legacy of physical health inequalities of earlier generations, for some groups anyway, even though they might have started out with health advantage in earlier adolescence. So turning to psychological well-being, notably across all ethnic groups, experiencing racism was an independent predictor of less favourable psychological well-being. So it didn't matter which ethnic group, racism is bad for you, in case we didn't know. However, despite enduring adversity, such as reporting more racism, living in a lone parent household, living in a deprived neighbourhood with high crime rates and high traffic pollution, adolescents from the minoritised ethnic groups reported better psychological well-being. So this was news, and this was something where people, practitioners and so on were like, are you sure? Are you sure you've got that right? So we did those analyses inside out. We had specialist statisticians come in to examine what this Maynard person was getting up to. And it was really the truth, according to those data. And when we explored this further, it was family life, engaging with activities together, and attending a place of worship, perhaps as markers of additional social support that were protective of psychological well-being. And that did raise the question of whether the protective effects would endure across the transition into young adulthood. And so we got the answer from the feasibility follow-up study of 10% of the cohort at age 21. And that showed that the answer is yes for some groups, so Black Africans and Indians, but there was an erosion of the advantage for others, especially Black Caribbeans and Pakistani ethnic groups. So again, indicating the important points during the life course where intervention would be valuable. So what was the value of all of this? Well, quantity is not everything, but for me it provided the opportunity to lead and contribute to a large number of publications and other outputs. So we felt we did make a significant contribution to the evidence base. We also contributed to debates in research and practice networks, strategic reviews and reports on inequalities and so on. And through bolt-on fellowships and studentships, the cohort was also the basis for significant capacity building And that provided additional line management and advisory experience for me with some of those early career researchers. However, all of that work, all of those outputs describes and in some ways goes to understanding ethnic health inequalities, but didn't address it. So we were keen that our findings, our work, would also inform intervention studies, and that led to the DEAL study. So the aim of DEAL was to develop culturally acceptable childhood obesity prevention interventions among diverse ethnic groups. And essentially we wanted to examine the supportiveness of schools and of places of worship as venues for obesity prevention. And we delivered and evaluated intervention sessions in those organisations. So no time really for the detailed and rich data that we got from the study. I'll just go to the three main lessons learned. So first, it took significant time and resources to recruit just a small number of places of worship compared to schools. So we now had these links with schools and they linked us to their feeder primary schools. But places of worship, we needed to do a lot of work to build relationships and to build trust, much as we had in the early days with the schools. We found that delivery of the interventions was much more straightforward in schools, that evaluation was actually more consistent, it was better in the places of worship. So 100% completion of evaluations of the sessions that we delivered in places of worship. And it was most variable in the primary schools. We delivered more sessions in the schools due to access to children and facilities, so the infrastructure. However, what the places of worship did give us was much better access to parents and the wider families, and the potential for wider community support because these were important community hubs. So the bottom line was that community settings provide opportunity for culturally specific support and engaging whole families, whereas schools were logistically less challenging. So here we are, we've written up this DEAL study and we're feeling good. We think we're in a great position to get this study to the next stage of a pilot trial. We're aware of the challenges, but we know about the mitigations against those. But we are excited about the potential of combining this schools and community-based approach. So we came close to achieving funding. We got to a second stage application in, we had some positive reviews, but there was a lot of back and forth with the panel. And in the end, they decided the targeted approach in communities was ultimately too risky and unrepresentative. So here we are again, it's a problem to try and do this community-based ethnic targeted research. Now, being in research is a world of rejection. But there are some rejected bids that hurt more than others. And we were broken. We could not believe that this had not gone through. We took a long time to pick ourselves up. We had put body and soul into this. We put body and soul into the DEAL study. We put body and soul into DASH. And there we were told that no, it's no good. So anyway, one has to get over these things. But places of worship remain underexplored as venues for obesity prevention programmes, and ethnic inequalities have worsened. Ethnic inequalities and obesity in childhood have worsened. Flip forward a few years, this work was cited as high scientific quality and contributing to policy recommendations, published by Public Health England, led by Professor Louisa Wells at Leeds Beckett. And fast forward to right now, today, there is a current funding call all about places of worship as places for health intervention, health improvement. We were perhaps a little ahead of our time then, but might still give that a go. So the analysis and dissemination of the study had overlapped with my move to Leeds Beckett. And so here we are. Silke's already told you, I joined in 2013 as a lecturer. And really, really busy with teaching, my existing collaborations for the first 12 months, and then promoted to senior lecturer in 2014. But at that time I was getting really anxious about being able to do any significant research, just due to the intensity that is teaching. So feeling a little bit on the edge there. And then in 2014, along came one, Dr. Tanafer Apke. I'm going to point you out, sorry, to embarrass you, right here at the front. And we quickly recognised how our interests overlapped and complemented each other. And so together with June Coatman, our very supportive subject lead at the time, we set up the Migrant Health Research Group. So Tanafer now at the University of Sheffield. Our collaboration, I would like to say, hasn't skipped a beat. We continue, and I'm going to take this moment to say thank you, Tanafer, for being an amazing colleague and, even more importantly, an absolutely brilliant friend for the last 10 years. Filling up. Okay, so what do we want to do? We really wanted to work with communities. As Silke said, we wanted to celebrate these communities, celebrate their assets, and not always be thinking about, what's wrong? What are the problems here? Although, of course, there are significant inequalities that we do need to address. But our stance, of course, was that these inequalities were unfair and avoidable, I beg your pardon, and not a natural phenomenon. The context then, here we go again, rising right-wing rhetoric, scapegoating of migrants. And although that was counteracted by more positive frameworks, they were not matched by available resources. However, there was a growing emphasis on centering the views of those that research and services were intended to benefit, and so that fully aligned with our research plans. So this was our first significant project, and it was funded by a research cluster award called the Foodie Study. And we obtained detailed descriptions of food habits. So again, we're celebrating these cultural foods. And, but there were external challenges to people being able to indulge in these. We documented participants' own understandings or their own views. They had some really thoughtful, explanatory models for why they thought diabetes was caused, and also told us about their preference for behaviour change to tackle diabetes and not medication. So there is another strand around food composition. Tanafer leads that work, and that's her story to tell whenever she wants to tell it. But we gained some really important insights into intervention leverage for diabetes prevention. And important to say that that Research Cluster Award was part of sustained institutional support for our work that we received from the various schools, subject heads, deans, and the Director of Research. Our Dean is here, Duncan Sharp and Gary Jones, Professor Gary Jones, our Director of Research. So we've always enjoyed support from you all. Thank you very much. So I was promoted in 2017, as Silke said. Things are ticking along nicely. Other projects are coming to fruition. Everything's looking good. Very, very good. COVID struck. So the picture of COVID-related inequalities did vary over the course of the pandemic, but people from several minoritised ethnic groups have experienced greater mortality from COVID-19 compared to white counterparts. We know this. There were clear statements from the health world about the integral importance of structural racism among the drivers of these inequalities. There was the resurgence of the global Black Lives Matter protests, and that also provided a clear message that the voices of those impacted needed to be heard. Despite that, there was this political insistence on trying to extract structural racism from the influence of, for example, socioeconomic circumstances, to deny the existence of structural racism, and furthermore to blame people's genes and their behaviour for their circumstances and the comorbidities that were important in COVID risks, such as obesity and diabetes, and ignoring how these are shaped by disadvantage. So this was deeply depressing and demotivating, and I have to say that this is probably the lowest point of my career to date. I just thought, why am I here? Why am I even bothering when this is what we're faced with? I felt personally and professionally attacked, and it was, and you had enough to cope with lockdowns and homeschooling and what have you. So that was a very low moment. But every cloud, something else was also happening. There was a real ease in being able to discuss things like structural racism that I had never experienced before. So now I'm in these knowledge exchange and evidence prioritisation activities and meetings, and I'm kicking off about racism, and no one's falling off their chair, no one's rolling their eyes, as I would have got perhaps in the past. And more importantly, that led to funded research where we could explicitly apply an anti-racism and social justice lens. And in this example, this was for gaining insights into improving weight management services for adults from Black ethnic groups. No real time to talk about that particular project, but it underpinned then a successful funding application to the Medical Research Council for the Health Connection study. And about that time, we were awarded the grant. That was when I was promoted to professor. So we combined the Public Health England research among Black ethnic groups, and then added a further 50 or so qualitative interviews among diverse South Asian ethnic groups. Huge thank you to Sharma Joshi, the researcher on the project who did all the interviews. And we did co-production workshops and events. Some of our co-production friends are here in the room today. And this is how we understood the lived experience and the intervention needs of our target populations. So we're still in the process of mapping the learning to intervention component and delivery ideas, but decisions, but some of the ideas, in addition to tailored diet and physical activity, of course, are these components on the right-hand side, where we're trying to address the concerns, the needs, the limitations of existing services that have been identified in our activities. And it was, for example, support for wider issues that hamper even being able to think about prioritising weight management that people wanted to support for, and that came out very strongly in those conversations. So co-production between various sectors was fundamental to the project, but it is the public contributors that have been central to this process, really important in driving this co-production. And I'll just take a moment to say that the families and friends of members who have passed away during the time of the project are in our thoughts, and we remember them fondly. But considering this was the first stage of intervention development, I've been absolutely blown away by the commitment and the enthusiasm of this group. It's just been amazing. But I'm going to let Diane, Tessa, who's there in the corner, she's going to be cross, and Claude tell you of their experiences as members of this group.
My involvement has been quite remarkable, actually. I think it's widened my expectation, and it's opened up my understanding of certain issues and why we go through issues that we do as minority. But I think my main involvement is just getting into the discussion, debating, and just learning a bit more and expanding where we can actually improve and where we can go to. So having a beginning, a middle, and we know there's going to be an end as well.
Being involved with Health Connections has been good because it's enhanced my knowledge of health, especially around diet and food.
We've got to know more people within the group, and just even getting to develop a better friendship with other people within the group.
Best benefits of working with the uni is that we're getting the information documented and recorded, and it's in a place where we've drawn a line now so we can see how better it gets or how worse it gets.
The benefits, other benefits that I've actually received is the networking. I think networking is quite important, and knowing that there's other areas that we can, actually look at. And we tend sometimes to narrow things down, and it's sort of like helped me to open up a bit more, get to know what is actually going on in the community.
It has enhanced my knowledge. It's really been good working with the team and being able to ask questions that you might not always be able to ask.
Yes, I would definitely like to stay involved and in touch with the project team, because it'll be good to know where the development will continue, and also that it's part of my work where I've done things within groups, and we've never always seen the ending stage. So it'd be good just to keep in contact so that way we know where we're going and to do more development, not just here afterwards within the development stage, but to continue the work afterwards.
I will definitely be staying in touch with the project team beyond this project, hopefully to encourage more people and more debate around health and diet within the community.
Oh, why not? Why not? So, this rather complex thing here was cut. This is version 7 of my slides, and this got cut in version 8, but somehow I'm on version 7. So with the chair's indulgence, I might have a go at this. Now I have to remember what I'd said about it. So what I was trying to do here, and once I committed to this, I couldn't walk away. But essentially what I wanted to do was give a sense of the range of reciprocal collaborations that I've had the joy of having across the university. So the different subject groups, research groups, the centres, the people within them. And it's been one of the great pleasures, as I say, of being at Beckett. So green circles, they're external links as well. And I wanted to just try and show, don't know how successful I've been, the interconnections between these networks, and particularly between research, policy and third sector organisations. And it is those third sector organisations that I really admire. Let's see if this is going to happen. Oh, yes. And I also wanted to make an additional mention of some of the other black academics that have inspired me at Leeds Beckett and made my aspirations feel feasible. Ooh. And so we've got Emeritus Professor Kevin Hilton is in the room. Hi. And Professor Vinnie Lander. So these are and Shirley Ann Tate and Dorothy Monacoso, no longer with this institution, but they were all inspiring presence. Their work was influential And we actually have tried some collaboration on bid activities. We didn't quite come to the fore. So you didn't make the fancy diagram, but I think you needed to be mentioned as well. So I'm glad we're on version 7 or 8. Yeah. So, yes, I think that's enough about that. So, as we say in Barbados, time is running and passing. But I'll just need to say something about our students, who I haven't mentioned. So I have taught all the time that I've been here at Leeds Beckett. I still teach nutritional epidemiology to the largely uninterested, but nevertheless I forge on. But our students are amazing, and in particular when they join us in our community engagement, this is where they really shine. And they are fantastic ambassadors of our university, and we work with other students in other universities as well through our links, and they're great ambassadors for their own universities. So I just wanted to share some of that with you in these images, and we've got some of these people here today, but they're going to have an even greater laugh when they see the next slide. So, yes, that's enough about that. So I wanted to say, though, some more about our PhD students. So they've been a really crucial part of the development of this research group. So here they are in their splendour, mugshots for some of them. And so we have those who've completed. So these are people who have been the main supervisor, the director of studies. I'm in supervisory teams for other students as well. So we've got those who've completed, those who are on their way to being finished, and Melissa at the bottom has made an incredible start. Mark, you're on her panel, so you know that she's just been fantastic since she started in February. Before I go any further, my close colleague nearby prompted me to make this disclaimer. I have nothing against men. Men are welcome. All genders are welcome in our research group. But I would be lying if I didn't say how enormously pleasing it has been to work with these women, to support these women from diverse backgrounds, to establish themselves in academia. And we've got some of you here today. I'm proud of your achievements, ladies, in getting onto a PhD programme in the first place when the odds are stacked against you, and to complete your studies or to be on the way to doing so. So I've listed their various other achievements on the slide here. So we've got co-applicants and postdocs roles in our research group, and the amazing skills that Waimi and Hadi have brought to the group. First PI grants. Yeah, absolutely. First PI grants for a couple of them. Research posts in research-intensive universities. Slightly miffed that I'm training people to then go off to these fancy universities, but they're in demand there. And they also do this fantastic work in the community through their charities and through their health advocacy. So apart from that, though, they have introduced me really to an array of countries and cultures and foodways. And that has allowed me to get going something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and that was to build international collaborations. So, I'll come to a close soon by telling you about some of that. So, this arm of our research, we're also focusing on co-production of interventions for health improvement. But this work is for the direct benefit of people in low and middle income countries. However, we're not imposing our view. This is really about sharing ideas, learning from each other, really, to find the best solutions in both of our settings. And again, we got going with institutional support from a Building International Collaborations funding, more than one actually. And that led to us being able to gain funding from the Global Challenges Research Fund to form a network delivering projects which address malnutrition using really holistic approach in Ghana and Nigeria. And even these initial small-scale projects are showing impact in terms of improving nutritional status. I'm going to especially mention Professor Yorson, who is the co-lead with me on one of these projects. Apart from being the most humble colleague that you could ever want to work with, despite his increasingly senior positions, he's almost in the stratosphere now, can't get near him, in the University of Ghana. During the pandemic, he was completely unruffled. So while I was melting down and panicking about everything, he was completely calm and kept things going on the ground in our projects in Ghana. So I thank him and his team, all credit to them, for us being able to still work together while apart and them keeping things going. So I thought Silke might actually cut off my mic if I went on for much longer. So I just squeezed in this bit at the bottom about our latest funding, again from the Medical Research Council. I think it's favouritism. For this new multi-component school and community-based intervention. So it's actually called the Health Secure Partnership. We're on our way with this. It's very exciting. So we're going to develop intervention to tackle malnutrition in adolescents in rural areas of the Gambia. And we're working with Anne-Marie Bagnall, which is great. It's very exciting. Yes. So this was dropped from version 8, but let me just see what I said I was going to do next. So I think a key priority is to actually deliver and disseminate all these projects we've got going on, and do much more creative dissemination. We want to move all our development stage interventions into the next stage of delivery and testing in both of our arms of our work. And we want to increase the diversity of the groups and the communities and the populations that we work with. We want to extend our UK and international networks, and that includes extending our relationships or improving our relationships with policy and practice. And we want more money. We want more money for research, but importantly, we cannot expand without capacity. Capacity building is just so important. And I want these PhD students and postdocs that we have that come and maybe stay for a short while to be able to come back. It's important to move on sometimes, but to come back and continue with us and to be that next generation who will continue this work, because I'm getting quite old now and a little bit less energy than I had 20 years ago. So we need some capacity. So let me touch base with my theme. And by the time I got to this stage, I thought, oh my goodness, I've set myself up. Are we out of the margins? I don't know. Yes, no, maybe. I was all over the place. But my conclusion then is that it's a qualified yes. So I think for some groups, certainly that are long established ethnic groups in the UK, we all know about the issues there. There is energy and commitment from these communities to address inequalities and are fully engaged, as you saw in the film, in co-production of research. A qualified yes, in the sense that we very clearly can highlight, and this has been going on for decades, describe inequalities, and we're going some way to understanding the complexities of what causes them. I had a long shopping list of work still to do though, because we know that these inequalities are worsening. There's been some failure here. As hard as everyone is working, as hard as people are working in communities, this thing's getting worse. So we still need to include these groups that remain highly marginalised, so new migrants, for example, and those who are not in the supportive community and social networks. We need to increase representation of minoritised ethnic groups across our sectors, of course, and importantly to work on moving quickly from knowledge to action. I want to finally make a plea, and it's a plea for strong national leadership. Can we please end scapegoating of migrants and minoritised ethnic groups for all the ills of the country? That encourages hostility, that is easily whipped up these days by media and social media, as we saw in those horrible events over the summer of this year. We need strong national leadership for support of local initiatives, which is where I feel the change will really happen. And the government needs to deliver on its equity promises. So I am indeed coming to a close, but I would like to offer up some thanks. So anyone who knows me well is aware I'm a big tennis fan. And it's the tennis player Althea Gibson, grossly overlooked throughout her career, who battled incredible discrimination. And she says simply, no matter what accomplishments you make, somebody helped you. So I'm grateful to all the colleagues. I've named some of you, I can't name all of you, and all the different things that we do and all the different collaborations. But thank you to all of you. But also our services behind the scenes, our EDI group and so on. Huge thank you to all of you. My friends, of course, have put up with me for a long time, and I thank them. And my family, especially my strong, funny and clever, creative brothers and my sister. They are a tower of strength in my life and been with me all along the way in this long but rewarding journey. A special mention of the female powerhouse. That is my 2 teenage daughters, my stepdaughter, and her adorable baby girl, our first grandchild, Granny Maynard. Thank you. And she has just brought so much delight since she arrived on Boxing Day last year. And my husband, their dad and granddad, who keeps our ship afloat. I could not do this job without his support. It would be impossible. So yes, thank you to Nicholas. And finally, the people you can see on the screen here who made me, who literally are what I'm here, and figuratively, but are no longer with us. We lost our dad so long ago. I've been an adult longer than without him than I have with him. But we were 2 peas in a pod. And what I got from him is, it's okay to be a quiet person. And if you're a quiet person, that gives you the opportunity to listen and to really hear. So I thank my dad for that. What can I say about my mum, Claudel Watson? One of those great pioneers in the NHS, in the Windrush generation, with me every step of the way, my biggest cheerleader. And she had immense pride in me and unwavering belief in me, especially when my belief in myself faltered. So thank you, Mum and Dad, for all that. We're still playing, Mum, we're still playing your records, and we'll dance again together someday. But we're not going to end on a sad note. I'm going to play you this, what I call a snippet of community joy. Clap along if you want to. It's only 20 seconds. So blink and you'll miss it. Move if you want to. So let's do that. So this is from one of our events for Health Connections. Just me then.